And Fred is being extra demonstrative with his displaying his walkie-talkie, just button mashing skills. So, hats off. No one could say you aren't a true musician, Fred, because you were killing that thing. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and it's time to listen to some music. And John is going to be offering up something for me to go off and listen to. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to know what we're working with, John. So please tell me, what is the song? What is the band?
So the band is the B52's.
Okay, all right.
I know we've talked off camera about this, and you know some of their stuff. But here's one I don't think you know. The track's called Planet Claire.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I don't know this track. I've heard its name before. Probably when discussing B52's, whatever few times that was in my life. But I know a few tracks by these guys. I know there's something I don't know, charming about how camp they are, and how silly they can be. Um, but yeah, I've only really heard of, and obviously collaborations with their sort of contemporaries in REM. But yeah, only a couple. So yeah, I'm kind of flying blind here. So let me go off, give this a listen, and I'll come back and let you know what I think. The Morse code. Nice. Get this very this very simple kind of key motif, just these single notes, but they have this like phasing kind of quality to them. Also digging the the hand drums coupled with the also very kind of simple work on the drums overall. But there's this that clipped guitar that dun, 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 dun. Very rhythmic. It's got movement to it, so that's nice. This interesting Morse code walkie-talkie stuff by Fred is quirky and comical and completely on brand for him and the band. So yeah, let's see where this goes. Playing the shit out of that walkie-talkie. Is she actually vocalizing? For something, Jesus, we're this far into it. This is moving. For a song that the title kind of connotes intergalactic, interstellar type vibes with this planet Claire. It does have this sound of being like, I don't know, otherworldly or transmitted from a satellite far off in the galaxy or something like that. So it's in that way it's kind of clever for, but in a very comical way, right? I'm trying hard not to take this too seriously. It is the B52's after all. This is sort of their thing. There's charm behind it. There always is with these guys. They're just so interesting and oddball.
She came from planet Black.
Right.
And she came from there. She drove a Plymouth satellite. A faster
guitar.
than the speed of light. Planet Claire has pink hair. All the trees are red. No one ever dies there. No one has a head.
I think it's pretty funny that I just used the word satellite, and then of all makes and models, he chooses Plymouth. He chooses Plymouth Satellite as the car that this woman drives. I wonder if the woman is Claire. I don't know. Odd but fun.
Some say she's from Mars, or one of the 7 stars that shine after 3:30 in the morning.
Wow. Okay.
She came from planet Claire. She came from planet Claire. She came from planet Claire.
So weird. Um, but I gotta, in a way, you have to tip your hat because this isn't my favorite song that John has ever offered me. It's a bit too repetitive for my nature without enough peppering in of other new things, whether subtle or in your face, that kind of give these repeated parts new life or new breath. So yeah, and there's a handful of B52 songs I am familiar with that I really really do like. Uh, but that have enough going for them that make them, I don't know, I guess more attractive to me than this song. This was nonetheless, and oddly, they've found a way to make me interested in the song, even though I didn't really like it that much. You know what I mean? There were parts of it that were really interesting, and some choices that were made that were fun. Visually, it's a lot of fun to just kind of watch unfold. I mean, I'm not over here upset that I lost 4.5 minutes to watching this and devoting my time to this. It was fun and interesting, but it just on for what it's worth, the song, it didn't like bowl me over or really captivate me or anything. The lyrics, I listened to like the first couple stanzas of the verse and kind of realized, what am I doing here? Like, there's nothing that on one listen from these lyrics that I could really extrapolate that has any like amount of profundity or is going to like change my view of things or give me some added perspective. It's kind of just, and look, I could go meet with John. He could be like, no, it means this, and it's got all these, and he could blow my mind. But on face value, I don't think there's really anything you're supposed to take away from this. It's just kind of fun and kitschy and campy and odd, which is several ways you could describe the band as a whole and their music, at least the stuff that I'm familiar with. Um, and yet it's somehow still oddly interesting to me, despite me not being super captivated by the song itself. Um, I do want to know if I'm correct in assuming that there isn't any major underlying message in the song and that it's just a bit of odd fun from a band who is renowned for odd fun. Um, yeah, it's also really interesting just to see the band this young and this far back because I had mentioned recently with John, I think both on and off camera that I've been, sort of watched recently, like the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary kind of concerts and specials devoted to the show. And one of them was a very music centric episode because they obviously have musical guests, if you're familiar with the show, every week that perform a couple tracks. And on the 50th, the B52's played, I think it was Radio City Music Hall, as part of the, concert and celebration. And it was fun to see them now out there still doing their thing. Obviously, they've aged quite a bit. It's been years, but they're still out there, kind of giving it their all and being as idiosyncratic as they ever were. But it's fun to just kind of look back and really, especially this recently after watching that, it's just an interesting juxtaposition. And one more reason to kind of like, for all of their campy silliness, to kind of revere the fact that they have this much staying power. Yeah, really interesting stuff. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this oddball song. Like when there was the walkie-talkie thing was really interesting to see utilized. I think it's Kate who has the big hair on keys. Was she actually vocalizing there? I couldn't hear her voice, or her voice was meshing so well with the keynotes that it was lost on me. But it was really interesting to see her kind of like mimic singing, or singing. I don't know. This is something I'm going to need to get ironed out with John when I talk to him. But yeah, I not surprised in the least that I'm left, kind of smiling while scratching my head in the wake of hearing a B-52 song. They have that effect on people. But yeah, let's get back to John and learn more about this quirky little number.
Dr. Strangelove is back. So you visited Planet Claire.
Yeah.
Was it with nice hair? Or was it something to be aware? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, we'll discuss those lyrics a little bit. Believe that. First, you didn't mention this, nor was there any obligation to. But it was, it wasn't just a thumbnail.
Oh,
like
shite! Yes, I forgot to say. So this, I will go into that, but this was a live performance with the studio audio.
Yeah.
Clearly, he was, I think when it was actually broadcast, it was broadcast with the live. And I think it was just so crap, someone's gone over the top and put the studio.
That's the interpretation. That's sort of the impression that I got. Because there was one or two times where things just looked a little off, but that's not even what I was going to bring up. That's it. That doesn't matter. The song that came through clear and all that stuff was great.
Yeah. But it's quite nice to see them prancing about, and
that's sort of what I was going to get to, because like I think I brought this up obviously with you off camera. It may have even come up once on camera too, but obviously here in the States, celebrating the 50th year of Saturday Night Live. And I've been watching that lately. And one of the things outside of comedy that they're known for is music. It's sort of like it's an entertainment show, and they've always had performers every week that perform 2 tracks or songs live. And they recently had the 50th musical portion celebration at Radio City Music Hall, and all these different acts throughout all the years would come out. So you're getting like tastes of newer stuff, tastes of older stuff, some collaborative stuff between generations. It was really fun, good watch. But one of the performers were the B52's that played there. So it was really fun to having seen them very recently and how they look now, which obviously, I mean, time rests for no man, or men
Yeah.
in this case. And so it was just, it had been so long since I had seen it. So forever in my mind, it's like them from the Love Shack video. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to see them now is, interesting, especially now throwing back to what looked like it may have even been before Love Shack, like maybe an earlier, because they look very young. It was just a fun experience, kind of a juxtaposition, because what's fresh in my head from having seen that to that. And yet there's still all the charm and whimsy and odd idiosyncratic behavior and attire that they it's transcended all these decades. So you got to respect and revere the fact that they've never put it down. Like they just kept going and going. So yeah, just a bit of perspective I've gained from watching that recently and now watching this. So that was really cool. So yeah, things start, and man, who doesn't love a bit of good old fashioned Morse code to get off a tune, right? I mean, come on. It's so odd. And this bit of like coded communication is then joined by some like very simple hi-hat work and then some auxiliary percussions with the hand drums. And this really interesting clipped guitar that obviously all this stuff evolves in just seconds after they all sort of introduce themselves. And Fred is being extra demonstrative with his displaying his walkie-talkie, just button mashing skills. So, hats off. No one could say you aren't a true musician, Fred, because you were killing that thing. Also, the keys are adding these really simple, like earlier on, these really simple but interesting sounding notes that almost have this phaser like quality to them as she's like bouncing between notes on the keyboard. So they're building all the sound, and obviously with a name like that, the inference is this intergalactic thing, right? This, some distant planet. The music that they're creating, as rudimentary as it is, does have shades of interstellar, soundtrack type shit going on. So that's fun. That's quirky. That kind of gets me to smile. Go ahead.
Yeah, it does, but in a kind of 1950s, Space Family Robinson way.
I was trying to be gentle when I said rudimentary, but yes, that's sort of like, it's like someone whose culture has yet to even investigate outer space, their interpretation of what outer space music sounds like. Not that there's any such thing as fucking outer space music that we currently know of, but there is this primitive interpretation that you get, vibes through the music. So yeah, made me laugh, or at least smile, Riley. So as the song progresses, the keys become fuller and begin to take this, play this melody that is it Kate Pearson? Is that the woman with the big hair? She's great. It looks like she's mimicking with her mouth what she's doing on the keys, and yet I'm certain I'm not hearing any vocals come out of her mouth. So it's I don't know what the hell's happening here with why she's doing this.
It is her vocals.
Okay, all right. Like I don't know if she's obviously talented to match a pitch that sounds so very much like the instrument she's playing to the point where I can't separate the meshing that's occurred. But yeah, that was throwing me off. So all the while, these rhythms are just like unyielding in their accompaniment. So the guitar keeps chugging away at that little riff, and the drums, both hand and full set, keep rolling along with it. So the song has this constant, almost cyclical movement in this, which is interesting at first, but I will say that there isn't a lot of variation in this song, which is one of like the things I would say that kind of work against it compared to some of the very few other songs of theirs that I'm really familiar with. But holy shit, it's the 2:31 mark, and we finally get some vocals from Mr. Schneider, who steps up to the microphone. There was no mistaking he was about to sing the way he approached that thing.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
He really is like warming himself up.
Yeah, and he's sort of like, it's like, okay, bro, we know you're gonna sing, get the ham with it. But that's him, that's everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned recently in a very recent one episode that we did, Jim Carrey and his inability to not overact. And there's some of that to Fred Schneider. Come on, the guy oozes too much or going extra. So, and that's part of his charm. So he's delivers, you know, his lyrics, vocals with his classic campy, over the top fashion of his. And there's the guitar at the end of every line kind of does this little accent work in the verse that kind of adds a little bit to the song, and I like that too. That was because I was honestly, at this point I was getting a little sick of the constant repeated riff that the guitar was doing. As good as it was, I was like, come on, dude, you got 6 strings and a full neck of frets, do some shit. So yeah, it was fun to see him add these little like touches in there. So Schneider describes a woman who comes from the titular planet, and she apparently drove a. And I swear to God, earlier in the reaction, I used the word satellite to describe like the sounds and stuff like that. And then he of course he cites the old classic Plymouth satellite that she apparently drove at excessive speeds. Um, and I'm also wondering, like, is she the like is the she that he's referring to the Claire in the from Planet Claire? So I'm like, am I okay to call her Claire because she heralds from Planet Claire? I don't know. So yeah, the lyrics only get weirder from here. Apparently, the air is pink and the trees are either red or rare. Uh, Either way, a near useless bit of information. Also, no one dies on Planet Claire, nor do they have a head. So at this point, I'm almost getting angry with myself for having paid this much attention to lyrical content. I should have known better. It's a shame on me situation. This is just gobbledygook silliness that Fred's throwing with this, like, again, this demonstrative flair that he always seems to have. At the 3:10 mark, the camera work and Fred's actions suggest that the splashing cymbal sound that I'm hearing is emanating from his walkie-talkie, because I hear it, but he's like jamming the thing up to the microphone, and I'm like, I don't know, dude. That sounded a lot like a splash cymbal and less like a, you know, Fisher Price walkie-talkie. But who am I? I didn't realize that she was singing earlier, and I thought it was the keyboard, so I could be completely wrong. But I liked that sound, that little bit of accented sound, and it features again a little bit later during this portion of the song as well. Um, they shift back into the verse, and Fred sings more inane factoids about this young lady. But interestingly, toward the end, he almost delivers the line, "But she isn't," in this near apoplectic fashion, as if he's refuting someone's insistent declaration that she is. So odd bit of like angered passion from my man Fred on this one, but I thought that was kind of funny as well. He then repeats 3 times that she came from Planet Claire. The music continues on for a few seconds before coming to an abrupt end, kind of punctuated by like some key notes, brief as they are. That's sort of what shined to me at the very end. So this song, like many B52 songs, was eclectic, quirky, and comical, and any of the other adjectives that are essentially synonyms that I've used to this point. And to be fair, because of this, I find the group to be interesting, very interesting, and worth listening to, but not always wholly enjoyable, if I'm being 100% transparent. And for me, this song was a little too repetitious and too weird. What? Well, I mean, come on, all their shit's weird, and I do like some of it, so that's probably, you know, a moot point, it being weird, which essentially just meant it was like it's repeated weirdness from start to finish, and thus I didn't really dig it that much. There were things worth watching this for, so I don't regret 1 minute the 4.5 that I invested into it. I laughed, I smiled. It reminded me of my memories of them in a weird way, like it tapped into that. So I did enjoy giving this a listen. But I don't think it would keep me coming back for more, if I'm being 100% honest. On this one track, there are other songs, man, if it comes on, I'm like, fuck yeah, B52's, yeah, Rock Lobster, all right. But I don't think this was one of them, because it just was missing a little bit of like I don't know, this je ne sais quoi, this flair that some of those other tracks of theirs have. It was still fun, and this was also because you did a great job in picking the video for this, because thank God I just didn't have to stare at a thumbnail. There was all the silliness and the dancing around the planted on the ground walkie-talkie as if he was the, you know, revolving around it. Again, this idea of a planetary revolution was kind of funny in the grand scheme of the whole, you know, theme of the song. But yeah, this tell me more about this track and if it had any real meaning. I can't imagine that it does, or maybe it does have an inspiration that's interesting. So I'd love to hear of anything you know about this, and tell me, maybe fill in some factoids about this band that I wasn't privy to.
Okay, Keith? Yeah, it's interesting what you say about this. I would say I always preferred this to Rock Lobster. Rock
Fair.
Lobster's a little bit annoying, to be honest with you. And this one I just thought was just proper sort of funky, groovy dance track, you know. Yeah, so that's why I picked it. But we'll get into that.
Okay.
So B52's originally were the B52's with that errant apostrophe, which they dropped really late into their career.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Annoying pedants across the globe. They were formed in Athens, Georgia, in 1976.
Mm.
So personnel: Fred Schneider, vocals and walkie-talkie. Kate Pearson, vocals, organ, and keyboard bass. Cindy Wilson, bongos. Her fucking hair in this. That was the black-haired one that went up.
Was that hair?
Yes,
That's another thing. I was like, what the fuck is on top of her head?
I think it was a bit of hair, bit of Meccano. I don't know. Ricky Wilson guitar and Keith Strickland drums. So they formed the B52's when Cindy Wilson, Ricky Wilson, her older brother, Pearson and Strickland, and a certain cowbell player, poet, and lead vocalist called Schneider, they held an impromptu jam session after sharing a flaming volcano at a Chinese restaurant in Athens. Flaming volcano is rum, brandy, pineapple juice, orange juice, and orgeat syrup. I don't know what the hell that is. Many variations exist, and the cocktail is more about the presentation than an adherence to a set list of ingredients. It's usually a multi-user drink served to a group in a special vessel known as a volcano bowl, which is a decorative ceramic bowl designed with a rising central hub feature which resembles a volcanic cone. The cone includes a crater reservoir which can be partially filled with rum or other flammable liquor. The crater liquor is carefully ignited when serving, creating a mild volcanic ambience with its central blue flame. A flaming volcano is usually served to a group of 2 or more people with a set of very long straws to facilitate convenient group sipping from a comfortable distance and for safety. So I thought you'd like to know about that.
I was a bartender in college, so yeah, this is dusting off memories of drink making and listening to B52's.
I've never seen a flaming volcano in this country. We used to sometimes get flaming drambuis, which was individual drinks, and of course the odd twat would try and drink it while it was still lit. But anyway, when they first jammed, Strickland played guitar and Ricky Wilson played congas. They later played their first concert with Wilson on guitar in '77 at a Valentine's Day's party for friends. So the name 52's comes from a particular beehive hairdo resembling the nose cone of the aircraft, which Pearson and Cindy Wilson wore in performances during the band's first decade. Strickland suggested the name came to him after a dream he had of a band performing in a hotel lounge. In the dream, he heard someone whisper in his ear that the band's name was the B52's. So obviously they take their inspiration from 50s and 60s pop music, rock and roll, and camp stroke kitsch culture. Schneider, Pearson, and Wilson sometimes use the call and response style vocals, and Schneider's often humorous Sprachgesang, contrasting with Wilson and Pearson's melodic harmonies, and their guitar and keyboard-driven instrumentation is their trademark sound, which is also set apart from their contemporaries by the unusual guitar tunings Ricky Wilson used. And yeah, his guitar sound is really nice. The band's first single, Rock Lobster, was recorded in 1978 and was an underground success, selling over 2,000 copies that led to gigs at CBGB's and Max's Kansas City. The band then signed to Island Records and released their eponymous debut album in 1979. The B52's, as the album's called, contained a re-recorded version of Rock Lobster. The album was a major success, especially in Australia, where it reached number 3 in the charts and ended up going double platinum. In the US, the single Rock Lobster reached the Billboard Hot 100 chart, while the album was also certified as platinum. In 1980, John Lennon called the B52's his favorite band and specifically cited Rock Lobster as an inspiration for his Double Fantasy album.
It's awesome.
The re-recorded version of Rock Lobster was also released as a single in UK and Germany. In Canada, the single went from cold hit to #1 in their national charts in 1980. Planet Claire, this track, was the second single from the album, and the music is based on Dwayne Eddy's version of Henry Mancini's Peter Gunn Thief. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, etc. The single reached number 24 in the Billboard dance charts in the USA. Ashbox, whoever the hell they are, said that Bongo's Ventura influenced guitar work, wrong, and Morse code blips are calling all pop AOR audiences to dance to this humorous follow-up to Rock Lobster. The Morse code at the beginning of the song is translated as MAWS DE CFH ZKR F1 3394, which is from a call tape recording transmitted by Canadian Forces Station Milco in Hubbard, Nova Scotia. Don't know why, but it is. In 2011, band member Kate Pearson expressed her dissatisfaction with the way engineer Robert Ash mixed her vocals with the Farfisa organ and the studio version using effects to make her vocals sound like a synthesizer.
There we go.
And stated that she preferred the sound of live performances of the song. In 1986, it was re-released in the UK with Rock Lobster and reached number 12 in the charts. And actually, here is my knackered up copy. Yeah. Yeah, Rock Lobster, Planet Claire, Future Generation, and Give Me Back My Man, which is also a bonza. So yeah, suitably camp. And that's pretty much the same as the thing. But yeah. And I remember the time, massive hit. I'm surprised it said it got to number 12. I kind of had in my head that it was like top 5, but it seemed to be everywhere. But anyway. The lyrics. After 2.5 minutes of waiting. She came from Planet Claire. I knew she came from there. She drove a Plymouth Satellite faster than the speed of light. Planet Claire has pink air, and all the trees are red. No one ever dies there. No one has a head. Some say she's from Mars, or one of the 7 stars that shine after 3:30 in the morning. Well, she isn't. She came from Planet Claire. She came from Planet Claire. She came from Planet Claire. There you go. So this performance that you watched, the studio audio, as we said, was for a children's Saturday morning TV show program called Get Fresh, featuring a presenter Gaz Top and the wonderful Gilbert the Alien. I still maintain that Gilbert's Fridge is one of the greatest TV shows ever. Kids ones, definitely. There was a guy called Hugh Cornwall who Phil Cornwall, sorry, Hugh Cornwall's stranglers. Yeah, Phil Cornwall, who did all the voices for Gilbert's Fridge. He's an impersonator, so he would do famous people.
Oh, okay.
And really, really, really funny. Yeah. It looks like it was recorded in Plymouth in 1987, and it looks like a spot that I think I've actually stood on. It's somewhere near the Barbican. But yeah. Anyway, Athens, GA, Inside Out, is a 1986 documentary film about the mid-80s music scene in Athens, Georgia. The only reason I got a VHS copy is because it included footage of REM performing live, and it had also, I've not seen it in years or watched it, but I remember there were some bits with Michael Stipe sort of mumbling away about train sets or something. I can't remember. Anyway, the biggest takeaway I can remember from it was, after the REM footage, was there's some footage of B52's playing live. They both had the fucking massive beehives, and they were really, really awesome. Weirdly, I don't remember the pylon footage, which was on that as well. But there you go. Um, so to go back to B52's story, they continued recording while Planet, the follow-up album, 1980. They tried to record an album with David Byrne in 81, and they scrapped it due to musical differences. So only an EP came out of it, the Mesopotamia EP. In 1982, Strickland announced he no longer wanted to play drums. So they employed a drum machine, and he switched to playing all the other instruments with Ricky Wilson. And basically, the other guys just end up just doing vocals in the studio, which resulted in the 1983 album Whammy. In 1985, the band was struggling to write new material for their album. They all lived together in the same house and felt that the collaboration was not working. Can you imagine? So they tried to write separately. They began recording in July 85, again using drum machines and synthesizers extensively. During the recording, guitarist Ricky Wilson, had been suffering from AIDS, although none of the band members were aware of his illness except for Strickland, as Wilson did not want anyone to worry about him or fuss about him. Wilson died from his illness in October 85 at the age of 32. Obviously, the band they returned to the studio. Strickland learned how to play the guitar in Wilson's style, and he switched permanently to guitar. And they got session players in to do the rhythm sections, and the results were 86's album "Bouncing Off the Satellites." In 1989, the band released "Cosmic Thing," which was their mainstream breakthrough. The single "Channel Z" or Channel Z from the new album became an alternative and college radio hit, #1 in the modern rock charts. Next single, Love Shack, became their first top 40 hit and Billboard, ultimately reaching #3 in November 89. That peak was matched in March 1990 with their follow-up single, Rome, which also reached #3. In Australia, the country that first embraced the band, Love Shack remained #1 for 8 weeks. Cosmic Thing climbed at the US top 5 and earned multi-platinum certification. The album also international success, reaching #1 in both Australia, New Zealand, and #8 in the UK. And at the 1990 MTV Video Music Awards, the B52's won 2 awards for Best Group Video and Best Art Direction. So a relatively weird and strange band that they were embracing sort of mainstream. And as you mentioned, Pearson then went on to, collaborate on 3 songs with REM's That Time album. The band had their next chart entry in 1994 when, as the B52's, they appeared in and sang the title to the live-action movie The Flintstones. Remember John Goodman, etc. What a pig of a film. Anyway, when it releases a single, it reached #33 in the US and #3 in the UK. So it's probably their highest charting single in the UK.
Jesus.
Just shows you there's no justice in the world. Their last album they did, Funplex, was released in 2008. They did their farewell tour, which ended. It's going to end in 2022, but due to illness, it ended in Athens in January in 2023. After which they took up residency in Vegas quite a few times. So doing that sort of bits and pieces. Finally, on May the 15th, 2024, the city of Athens announced that their Federal Prospects Hockey League team would be named the Rock Lobsters, honoring the band and their hit song. The decision came after an online poll where the Rock Lobsters won by a wide margin. So that's quite cool. I do know from sort of footage I've seen, it might have been that Athens GA Inside Out, it might have been others, but I think the bands that were in Athens at the time all looked up to the B52s as like the sort of leading light, which is funny really when you consider where REM ended up. But yeah, so real sort of and as you said, they have remained true to their identity. They may have more expensive suits rather than thrift store clothing they started with, but their innate quirkiness is not an act.
No,
it really is. It's them, and I think that's what people really love more than anything. I do think that Ricky Wilson's guitar work is awesome, and it has that sort of Dwayne Eddiness to a lot of their stuff, especially the first couple of albums. And it's just really nice and satisfying, and their aesthetic and everything else makes them quite a unique sort of entry in terms of new wave American music.
Yes, I'll say that speaking on their aesthetic has there's a soft spot in Baltimore hearts for that aesthetic because it's so John Waters adjacent,
Yeah,
and very much like Hairspray,
yeah,
with the beehives and the cat eye glasses and just the overall aesthetic. And there's a place in Baltimore called Hamden. It's a little neighborhood area, very artsy, very hipstery, and the people there still decorate their lawns with gaudy flamingos and bright colors and all this stuff that screams Waters, and rightfully so, Baltimore native. But also, there's this weird, odd connection to the B52's and their aesthetic as well. So you'll hear in the summertime B52's coming from the window of one of these, we call them Hun houses because everyone around there's like, oh yeah, Hun this and Hun that, you're Hun. It's like our sweetheart or something. So, and that everyone kind of like revels in looking like that or incorporating it into their current fashion. So it's almost like a little B52's pocket of Baltimore. The aesthetic rings true to someone who kind of sees it on a regular basis and is reminded of. When I look at the B52's, I'm reminded of Hamden, and when I look at Hamden or go to Hamden, I'm reminded of the B52's and of course John Waters. So yeah, near and dear to me for a very weird reason, but still, it reminds me of home oddly.
there's something really charming about them. You
Yeah,
know? So, like we were saying about the Sugar Cubes with Einar and his utterances, um, and people complain about it ruining the song. But I mean, that's the whole point of the Sugar Cubes. It's the whole point of B52's as well. If you want to listen to Bjork singing, listen to her solo stuff. You know,
right.
and it's the way all mix. It works in the mix, and it's the same with Funky Little Love Shack and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
that comes out. You know, it just adds to it, and it's great. I think. All right, I should wrap things up.
Okay.
Thanks for listening, Sandy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, please hit the like button. Drop some comments. Tell us what you think about B52's, particularly that earlier stuff, this album, Rock Bloody Lobster, etc., etc. I really like this first album and the next one as well, actually. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We really appreciate everybody who helps support this channel, and it does matter, and helps us move on up algorithms, all that sort of evil core stuff. Yeah, please sign up. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.